rational. The universe embodies rationality. Now, if you think about it, that's odd. It's pretty easy to say that my friend Bill is rational, or Christopher Hitchens is partially rational. It's another thing to say that matter and objects and planets embody a certain kind of rationality. They follow rational principles. Number two, the universe obeys laws that are comprehensible in the language of mathematics. Again, if you think about it, that's very strange. If I'm driving my car, I can follow laws. I see a stop sign, I come to a halt. How does matter obey laws? How does the electron know what to do? If we look at matter, it is unbelievably well behaved. It follows the laws of Newton's inverse square law. It obeys Einstein's laws. The point I'm trying to get at here is that this is a metaphysical proposition. A third one, the laws out there in nature are mirrored by the goings-on within our minds. We can apprehend and understand the laws. Very odd. Why should the goings-on within our head match the goings-on in the universe? Now, if you're a believer, you know why. God is believed to be omniscient, which is to say super-rational. He built the universe to embody rationality. God is a lawgiver, and the universe reflects his laws. We are made in God's image. We have a spark of the divine, so it's not surprising to the theist that you have this arrangement. But for the atheist, you can't take any of that for granted. This is faith-based science. A final point. We hear a great deal about how Christianity has been terrible for the world. The truth of it is, if you look at the casualties of Christianity, the Inquisition, the Crusades, the Salem witch trials — I read a book on the Salem witch trials. I had been educated to believe the Salem witch trials had killed thousands, or at the very least hundreds of people. I discovered that at the Salem witch trials, the number of people executed was in fact 18. The Inquisition, if you read Henry Kamin's book, the most authoritative study of the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition, over 300 years, killed 2,000 people. Now just try to compare that to the crimes inflicted by atheist regimes, not 500, not 1,000 years ago, but within our lifetime. If you look only at the big three, Stalin's Russia, Mao's China, the Nazi regime in Germany, you have, within the space of 5 decades, over 100 million casualties. So atheism, not religion, is responsible for the mass murders of history. I want to end by saying that I think Christianity has done a lot for the world. The world would be a lot worse if we didn't have it. I think even Christopher Hitchens, by the end of today, should be chanting, if only under his breath, "Thank God for Christianity." Somewhat like the mosquito in the nudist colony, I'm trying to decide where to begin. I want to begin with, if I may, with stripping away a kind of a pose. Because usually when you debate the atheist, the pose is, I am a man of evidence seeking the data. I'm following the evidence where it leads. Now, what's interesting is that if you listen to Christopher Hitchens, he offered no shred of evidence for anything he said at all. He presumed that God does not exist. He presumed the Christians made it all up. He presumed, let's take one of his seemingly firmer presumptions: scientific laws are inviolable. I said earlier this was an article of faith, and it is. There is no scientific law at all for which we could say that there are no exceptions to it. Let's take one of the most fundamental principles of science. Light travels in a vacuum at the speed of 186,000 miles a second. How do we know that? We've measured it. 1 time, 2 times, 10 times, 1,000,000 times. The philosopher David Hume says even if you measure it 50 million times, you cannot draw an unrestricted general conclusion from any amount of empirical tests. And why? How do we know that on a distant star 5 million light years away, light travels at that speed? Do we know? We do not know. We guess. We assume. Science is based on those kinds of assumptions. So it is the skeptic David Hume who destroyed this idea that scientific laws admit of no exceptions. And if scientific laws do admit of the possibility of exceptions, miracles are possible. Now, let's look at Christopher's portrait of Christianity, which is the heart of his case. It's not fundamentally about, I think, evidence. It's fundamentally, somewhere I believe Christopher called himself, and not an atheist, an anti-theist. And I think what he meant by this is, it's not that I don't believe, I hate God. I hate Christianity, and I hate its founder, Jesus Christ. Why? Why? Now, if you look at history, not even as a believer, here is Christ, one of the mildest men to set face on the earth, harmed absolutely nobody, introduced radical new principles which, if followed, would make our world immeasurably better. Don't just return an eye for an eye, forgive your enemies, turn the other cheek. As a counsel of personal decency and holiness, the power of forgiveness, these are the radical new ideas introduced by Christ. They are seen by Christopher as wicked ideas, even though they have done so much to make our world what it is. It's sadomasochistic, he says. Well, if you look at it purely from human terms, here's a guy, he was killed brutally, but if you accept the Christian premise that God sent his son, not just to be killed, but to be resurrected. It's the resurrection that's the core of Christianity, not the crucifixion. So it's not a sadomasochistic thing, it is a triumphant thing. And here I want to get to the core of all this. I want to read a quotation, if I may, from Christopher, and it's something he sort of said this evening. He says, "It would be horrible if it were true that we were designed and then created and then continually supervised throughout all our lives, waking and sleeping. It would be like living in celestial North Korea." Here I think we get an insight not only into the motive, of atheism, but also into the nature of God himself. And here's what I mean. The way the atheists portray it, God is meanly flinging the atheist into hell. Wrong. We hear from Christopher Hitchens, he doesn't want God. He's shutting himself out from God. He doesn't want heaven. He sees it as a form of abasement, a form of humiliation, a kind of unending parade with flowers in which he's going to be handing out garlands. He doesn't want it. In short, the gates of hell are locked from the inside. When the Bible says that the salvation is a gift of God, many people think it means that God gives you the gift of salvation. No. That's not what it says. It doesn't say salvation is the gift from God. It says salvation is the gift of God. God is the gift. And there's no compulsion. We are free to accept him or to reject him. If we reject him, it is by our own choice, and God reluctantly gives us our wish. There's no sadomasochism in that. There is only free choice, the choice to reject God. Thank you.